and today we are going to make a scarf hat, a hat you can thread a scarf through. And I also want to let you know that I'm on Facebook and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. I post frequent updates, more frequently than I do videos. And this scarf I dye myself, and if you're interested in how to do that, I have a video. I will put a link in the description below, and you can find out about how to get the supplies to do this yourself. It's super easy. You can do it at home, or you can just buy any scarf at the store and use it to thread through this hat. So let's make this hat. Okay, so for this video, I am using Hobby Lobby's I Love This Yarn, which is a number 4 worsted weight, and it's 100% acrylic. It is, they recommend a US 5.5 crochet hook. I use a 5.0 because I know how I crochet and how it comes out. So it's a number 4. They recommend a 5.5 crochet hook. This is for the UK. Okay, so you can see everything here. All right. The color is Glacier. It's a real pretty mint color. So if you've seen any of my other videos, I'm going to start this one exactly like the hat video that I did, the crocheted summer hat. So I start with a magic ring. If you don't want to use a magic ring, you can make 4 chains and connect them and then crochet into the chains. It's really not that hard to make a magic ring. So I put my tail here, and there are other videos on YouTube. I'm going to wrap it around here, make an X on the top of my hand. Then I'm going to go under that X, grab my yarn, okay, and then grab this and lock it in there, okay. Oops. So you end up with that. And this is really nice because you can adjust it. We'll tighten it up, okay. And like I said, I'm going to use a 5mm hook, and I don't do a gauge swatch, but I know when my circle gets to about from 5.25 to 5.75 inches in diameter, then I stop my increases. So since I've done this before in a half double crochet, I already know about what size it needs to be. So you can use a 5.5 hook. I know if I use a 5mm, it's going to be the right size. For some reason, I make some hats and I don't think my tension is very loose, but my hats come out too big. So this should fit a 21 to 23 inch head when you get done. Okay, so we're going to put 10 half double crochets into the magic ring. I hold my yarn, I wrap around my pinky and here. Everybody does it differently. Some people do what's called a pencil hold. I can not do that to save my life. But I do it what's called a knife hold. So you're going to go under into the magic ring, grab the yarn this way, pull it up, and you now have 3 loops on your hook, okay? And we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, okay? I'll do that again. Yarn over, or you come underneath the yarn like this, go into the magic ring, come behind, grab the yarn, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook, okay? We're going to do that 10 times into this magic ring, or into your ring. And I also keep a little bit of tension on this ring. It makes it easier if I hold it with my fingers. And I'm sorry if my cuticles are dry. I live in a dry climate and it's winter time. I don't know why, but the minute I start making videos, my dog starts barking at whatever he sees outside. Oops, hook is upside down. Okay, pull through 3. And there is a little wheel in the bottom of your screen down here where you can slow this down and you can take it at a slower speed. Okay, I'm going to speed up a little bit so I can finish. So do 10 half double crochets into your magic ring. Okay, I now have 10 half double crochets, and you can count your little V's. So you can count these V's. 2, 4, 6, oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You do not count the loop on your hook. So now if you have a magic ring, you want to pull it tight, and we will take the tapestry needle later on and close it up. All right, so those of you that have seen my other video know that if I'm doing either a single, double, or half double crochet, I crochet in a spiral. And the reason for this is in crochet when you join, so like if I were to join here and do this and chain up one and then start the next row, there will be a very visible line all the way down the hat, a seam. And I don't like the seams. And yes, there are ways that people have come up with to try to reduce the visibility of the seam, and I have tried almost a whole bunch of them. I've tried a whole bunch of them, and I didn't like any of them. To me, you can still see the seam. And a lot of times in crochet, it will move, so it won't even be a straight seam. It'll go, you know, some kind of wonky way. So I crochet in a spiral. So when you crochet in a spiral, you need a stitch marker or a piece of yarn. You don't have to have an actual marker. Anything will work. So what we're going to do here, this is my first stitch right there, and I'm going to go under both loops. So see how that little V there? We're going to go under both of those loops. I'm going to grab my yarn, go into, can't have anything else in the picture. It tries to focus on that. Come through that one, and then another half double crochet. So there's my first half double crochet. So you want to put your stitch marker there so that you know what your first stitch is, because when you crochet in a spiral, you don't have any way to judge where is your first stitch. Okay, so there's my first stitch right there. So for round 2, we're going to put 2 half double crochets into each stitch. So I'm going right back into that same stitch where I just put that one and put one more. Grab my yarn and make sure you're always grabbing your yarn under and over. I see people do, for whatever reason, I see people do this. They go in here and then they go backwards. I don't know why they do that. You should always go under and over. Okay, so I'm going to put 2 half double crochets into the second stitch. Here's my third stitch, go under both of these. Grab my yarn. And I see a lot of people doing that. They come here and for some reason they switch and they go over, and you should always go in the same direction. I don't know why people tend to do that on a half double crochet, but I see that a lot. You should always come underneath. There are times when you grab on the top, and I think it's when you're doing the little animals like amigurumi that people grab under here, but it actually changes the stitch. So the stitch will not look exactly the same. Okay, so put 2 half double crochets in each stitch around. Meet me back. You should have 20 stitches when you finish this round. Okay, so I'm coming down to my last stitch. So I have 16 so far, so I'll put 2 in this one right before my stitch marker, and that'll make 18. 1 and 2. In crochet, I found it's important to always count your stitches at the end of every round. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19, and 20. Because I have gotten off before, even if you think you're, sometimes you'll put 1 in one stitch instead of 2, or 3 instead of 2, or whatever. It happens. Okay, so now I'm going to, you can either take your stitch marker out now or you can go into the stitch and then take it out, just as long as you know where your first stitch is. So I'm going to go right into there. Now I'm going to do 1 half double crochet in the first. Okay, and that's my first stitch. I want to mark that again. So I'm going to mark that one. There's my first stitch. And then I'm going to do 2 in the second. One, 2. And you're going to repeat that. 1 in the next stitch, 2 in the next stitch. 1, 2. Okay. So 1 half double crochet, 2 half double crochets, 1. When you get to the end, you should have 30 stitches. Repeat that and meet me back. So I'm at the end of round 3 and I counted and I have 30 stitches total. Okay. So at the beginning of round 4, we are going to do 1, 1, and 2. Okay. So you can take your stitch marker out. Half double crochet 1, put your marker back in, okay, 1 in the next stitch, and the next stitch will get 2. Okay, so 1, 2. Okay, so that's your pattern repeat for this round. 1, 1, and 2. 1, 1, and 2. Okay, so at the end of this round, you should have 40 stitches at the end of round 4. So continue that repeat and meet me back. I'm at the end of round 4 and I counted and I have 40 stitches. Your last stitch will always have the increase. So your last stitch before your marker will always have the 2. All right, so round 5, we're going to do 3, 1 in the first 3 and then 2 in the next, okay? So this is 1 in the first one. And I'm going to put my marker here. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then the next one will get 2. So 3, and then 2 in the next. Okay. Once again, 1, 2, 3, and your next one will get the increase. 2 in the next. All right, repeat that until you get all the way around to the end, and you should have 50 stitches at the end of round 5. Okay, so at the end of round 5, I have 50 stitches. I counted them, and once again, your last stitch before your marker should have your increase of the 2 stitches. So I'll take my marker out. So now round 6, this is our last increase row. So for round 6, we're going to do 4 half double crochets, then 1 increase, okay? So you see how that's pretty easy to remember. Each round you're just increasing the number of single stitches between your increase by 1. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're going to do the increase. Sorry. Okay, so the next stitch we'll get 2 half double crochets. So 1, 2. Okay. All right, once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, increase of 2 stitches in the next stitch, going into that same stitch. Okay, so that's your repeat for round 6. This is the last round of increases. 4 half double crochets, then 2 together, 4, and then 2 together, and meet me back at the end of that round. You should have 60 stitches. Okay, I'm at the end of round 6. That's going to be all of my increases at this point. So here's what I was saying. Instead of doing a gauge swatch for a hat, I use a tape measure and I look at what my measurement is right here. And so if it's anywhere from, this one is about, right about 5.5. I usually like mine to be somewhere between 5 1/4 to maybe 5 3/4. 5.5 is usually right where I need it to be so that it comes out the right size. Okay, so that's right at 5.5. If you are not in the United States, 5.5 is going to be 14 centimeters. Okay. So that's about what I make my hat diameter increases. So from here on out, there's no more increases. We're just going to continue 1 half double crochet in each stitch around. And don't worry about this looking this way. We will bring it back up into alignment before we start doing the loops for the scarf. So I'm going to continue with 1 half double crochet in each stitch around. And I'm going to do a total of 13 rows. That's from the beginning all the way out. And then I'm going to see what the length of my hat is and gauge it from there as to whether I think I need to do more rows. So actually I ended up doing 15 rows. So you need to do at least 15 rows. And I'll tell you what mine measures right now. So right now mine is almost 6, so about 5 3/4-ish, okay, in length. And you want to make sure that you have the double treble crochet loops are going to add 1 1/4 inches or so, maybe 1.5 inches, and then we're going to have an edge on top of that. So you're adding probably 2 more inches. I don't like my hats to be more than 8 inches for this type of hat. Because usually that will be too long. So I'm at row 15, and you want to end up 2 stitches from your marker. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring this back into alignment because we now have a fairly tall stitch. Okay, and the way we do that is, since we have a half double crochet here, we're just going to do a single crochet. So I'm not yarning over. Going under both of these loops, grab my yarn and pull through for a single crochet. In this last stitch before my marker, I'm going to go in, grab my yarn, and I'm just slip stitching into the last stitch. So see how that brings it up nice and even, and you don't have a weird jog. Okay, so now we're going to do the loop section. So for the loop section, we will start in this stitch. We're no longer doing a spiral, so you can keep your stitch marker, take it out, but you'll know where you'll end up on this row. Okay, so this is going to be a really tall stitch, so we're going to have to chain up, and I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Some people do 5. I think it looks fine with 4. Now we're going to do a double treble crochet into this same stitch that we just chained into. And we can always put the scarf over that, so if you think it looks weird to have 2 of these stitches in one place, we can always put the scarf over that. So for the double treble, you're going to do 1, 2, 3 wraps, 1, 2, 3 wraps around your hook. We're going into the next stitch over. So this is the same stitch that I just went into for the first one. Grab my yarn, pull up a loop, okay? So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on my hook. We're going to yarn over and work them off 2 at a time. Yarn over, pull through the first 2. Now you have 4 loops. Yarn over, pull through the second 2. Have 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through the third 2. 2 loops left. Yarn over, pull through the last loops. And this is your double treble. And these are going to be our loops. Once again, 1, 2, 3 times around. Now we're going into the next stitch over. So I was in this stitch, now I'm going into the next one. Grab my yarn, pull up a loop, work them off 2 at a time. 2, 4, 6, and oops, 8. Okay, so these will be our loops for our scarf. Actually end up being fairly long, okay, at least 1 inch and 3/4. Okay, so you don't want your hat to be too long because we still have an edging to go after we get our loops done. Okay, so for those of you not in the US, and I said my hat was, you didn't want it to be more than 6 inches. So you don't want it to be more than 6 inches is about right there. So 15, a little over 15 centimeters, okay? And these will be, you know, your loops are going to add another 4.5, okay? Or once again, 1 inch, 1.5 inches or so. And then we still have another edging. So I would say that your hat needs to be 5.5 to 6 inches long, not more than 6 inches before you start your loops. And so we're just going to repeat that all the way around. Once again, you should have 60 stitches. So you should have 60 plus your starting chain. So you will probably end up with 61 if you count this starting chain as 1 because we put 2 in the very first stitch. So finish that and meet me back around. I've done my loops all the way around my hat, and this right here is not, this is not a stitch. This is where you chained up. So you're not going to go into here. So this is my last loop here, and then we are going to join into the top of this chain right here. Okay, grab my yarn, pull through, pull through. Okay, and I'm going to chain, oops, I'm going to chain 1. Okay, so you'll have your loops right here, your chain. So yes, I have 60 loops plus this starting chain. And you may have to chain up 5. It just depends on, you know, if you chain 4, just chain loosely. But it's going to be fine because we can put the scarf in through this, and then, but it actually looks fairly even when you look at it. When you add your starting chain in there, you can't really tell that it's not a treble crochet. So for the next round, I'm only going to, I just chained up 1. Okay, so there's my join. I'm only chaining 1, okay? And then I'm going right back into the same stitch that I joined into and do 1/2 double crochet. Okay, so just like you were doing before, 1/2 double in the joining stitch and 1/2 double in each stitch around. Okay, so just do 1/2 double crochet in each stitch around, and meet me back when you're finished with that round. Okay, I'm at the end of that round and I still have 60 stitches. Once again, this is not a stitch, okay? That's where you started your chain, and I'm going to join right here to the top, this V. This is my chain 1 here. So we don't go into that. This is my half double crochet. I'm going to grab that and join here. Okay, so you have a couple of options. If you don't like the shell or scalloped edge, you can just go ahead and do a round of single crochet and end here. If you don't think it's quite long enough, you could do one more row of half double crochet and then a row of single crochet if you wanted. I'm going to go ahead and do the scalloped edge or the shell edge at this point, and I'm going to show you that that edging. Okay, so for the shell edge, I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to do one single crochet into this same stitch where I joined. So I'm going to go right into here, pull up a loop, do one single crochet. I'm going to skip this next stitch, and I'm going to do 5 half double crochets in the next. So into this stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now I'm going to skip this next stitch and single crochet into this stitch. Okay. Same thing again. Skip one, 5 half double crochets into my next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. And this will be the repeat. Skip this stitch, single crochet into the next stitch. Okay. So this is your nice little shell edge. Okay. So we're going to repeat that all the way around. You can back this up if you need to. And then when you get around to the end, meet me back up and we will do our join. Okay, so when you finish all your shells, you should have 15 shells. And when you get to the end, you should have, because we're skipping a stitch, a shell, then an extra stitch before we connect to the first single crochet. And remember, this is not a stitch. Okay, so this right here, that's not a stitch. That's where we chained and then started. So we don't count that as a stitch. We do count this as a stitch. So I've got my last shell and then skip a stitch, and then we're going to join, and I just marked it so you can see my first single crochet. Let's see how you can see this is your single crochet. So there's the stitch. Now this is my first single crochet right there. Okay, see that right there? So not this one, that's my chain. I'm going to go into this one and pull up my yarn and pull it all the way through. Now I'm going to pull my yarn all the way through. You're going to cut your yarn, pull it through, and then I will show you how to do an invisible join. So you need to cut your yarn, take your tapestry needle and thread it. So for our invisible join, here we have finished off and pulled up our tail. Okay, we're not going to go into this first stitch. We're going to go into this stitch, one over under both loops with our tapestry needle. And it's going to make a faux loop. And then we're going to go right back into the stitch we came out of, which will be this one right here. Okay. All right. And that's going to make it look like there's an actual loop there. And it just makes your finish look really nice. See, you can't even tell where you finished because you put a faux loop on top of that one. It just makes your edging look really nice. So then, of course, you will want to weave in your ends. I just do it whatever is easiest and neatest. I find when you have these shell stitches that putting your tail through these stitches here is helpful. All the way, oops, sorry, all the way to the end here is helpful. Don't pull too tight, okay? Make sure you still have a nice edging. See how nice that looks, and you can't even tell where your joins are. I'm going to go ahead and weave it through a couple more, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing in the next shell over, just to make sure this tail doesn't come out. So I just wove it in between a couple of the stitches in between there, in between the shell stitches. Sorry. So all I did was bring it over right in here so that you can't really see it on the outside. And I'm just going to weave it in one more time through the shell to make sure that it does not come loose. Okay. All right, so now we have our hat completed, and all we have to do now is weave in our scarf. So now I will show you. Your hat's a little bit longer than when we began, I was telling you about. So it's right about 8 inches, okay? So right about 8 inches now. Okay. So that's usually right about the correct length for this type of hat. If you are not in the US, it will be 20 centimeters, okay, from the top to the bottom.